I welcome this afternoon to another edition of Hawaii's Living Legend Lawyers, the three-digit project of the HSBA. We're here in ThinkTech Studios, and I have with me two very large personalities in our bar. I've got Valta Cook, known as Val from the Big Island. He is bar number 718, and I have Stanley Roehrig, Stan Roehrig, bar number 664. Welcome, gentlemen, and thanks for coming.
Nice to see you.
Our pleasure, my pleasure.
Thanks, Val. And both of you have come from the Big Island all the way over here today, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Val, I'd like to start with you.
Sure.
What brought you to Hilo, and when was it?
I came to Hilo when I got married, actually, and married a local girl from Hawaii. But I'd been to Honolulu earlier in the military, and
we have a picture of you in the
You
military.
do,
Could
right.
you pull up photo number 2, please? Let's take a look at what you look like. And as we're waiting for that photo to come up, there he is, Val. Thank you so much. What
Yeah.
year was that taken, Val?
that was taken about 1960, 67, I would say, right after when I went in the military. We had 2 years obligation in those days, and that was at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas.
Okay.
And then I got an assignment to Hawaii, and I didn't want to come to Hawaii. I wanted to go to Europe. The only thing I knew about Hawaii was hula skirts, you know. But the guy said, "No, you may not be able to go to Europe." So I came to Hawaii and later met my wife, and I was stationed at Fort Shafter for 2 years.
Okay.
Greatest 2 years, 2 great years here.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. And so how did you end up settling in Hilo?
Well, after law school, we moved back to Dallas after we got married, and I worked for a department store, and I wanted to be an attorney, so went to law school. She put me through law school. And then we came back to Hawaii because her dad had cancer, and we thought he was going to die, so I said, okay, we'll go back there, and I'll stay a couple of years and come back. Well, he had a miraculous recovery, which was great, so he lived for 10 years. We had 2 kids by that time, and I had my practice well established, so I stayed.
Good for you.
Great move, yeah.
Good for you. And let's get you to Hilo, Stan. How did you end up in Hilo?
After law school, University of Washington, I came home to Honolulu in 1965, and there were too many cars. And I decided that my wife and I, we just got married the week we got back from law school, and we decided that if we liked the Big Island, we would go to the Big Island. If we didn't like the Big Island, we were going to go to Australia.
Oh, wow.
And we wanted to raise our family in the country, and at that time I just felt that I didn't want to make a career on Oahu.
Okay.
So that was it. So that's how we got to Hilo.
Well, it's my understanding that in your earlier days, and maybe even before you were a lawyer, certainly right after you became a lawyer, that you did have a mentor who kind of guided you a little bit. Do you have a picture of that mentor with you?
Well, isn't that a coincidence I brought it with me?
Thank you, Stan. Could you hold it up so everybody can see?
This is Governor Burns, and his Attorney General was Bert Kobayashi Sr., and Bert Kobayashi Sr. was my boss. He was the Attorney General when I came back from law school in 1965, and he hired me as Deputy Attorney General. Probably that was just because of my talent, but it could be because my father and Bert Kobayashi Sr. played poker. Together for many years. And so, at any rate, that's how I got the Attorney General's office. And one day, the county attorney from the county of Hawaii came into the office. There's only 4 lawyers that all the criminal work and all the civil work for the whole island. And Yoshido Tanaka came in the door, and he was looking for a 3rd deputy, that lower rung on the totem pole. And so I said, well, I'd like to try Hilo. I got to go and see. I haven't been to Hilo for many years. Mm-hmm. So my wife and I flew to Hilo, and it was sunny.
A sunny day?
A sunny day in Hilo, very rare.
Okay.
And so we decided that we'd stay and live in Hilo and raise our family in the Big Island. And that was the beginning of a wonderful career.
And how long has it been, your career in Hilo?
It's been 50 years, just 50 years in November.
Congratulations, Stan.
Thank
That's
you.
wonderful.
Thank
And how
you.
about you, Val? How long have you been a
Well,
practicing
I
lawyer in Hilo?
I came 2 years after Stan, and I came with a political guy too. I was hired by Nelson Doy in Shirokanamitsu. Nelson was, I think there were two. I'm not a Democrat, by the way, but this Democratic firm hired me, and Nelson was allied with Gill, and I understood there was a fracture there.
Yeah, Tom Gill.
But Nelson was a great guy, and he's sort of my mentor too. I really, he just died a few months ago, by the way.
Yeah.
I see.
But after all these years, but it was great practicing there with him and Shirokanamitsu. Being a Haole from the mainland, of course, I was married to a local girl, Japanese girl, but it was different because I'd see her. But when I came to Hilo and I suddenly walked out on the street, I only saw Japanese faces, and it was really a cultural shock. It took a while to get used to that.
adjust, but you did, and you've done very well.
I think so. And being with Nelson and Cyril, they were, well established in the community. So I got clients from them later on. And then the only other big firm there was the Carl Smith firm. And they were actually bigger than Honolulu at the time.
Right.
And I was about the only other Caucasian in the legal community in private practice. I think there was Lou Nevels was there, but he practiced mainly in Kona. And I got a lot of referrals from the Carl Smith firm of Caucasian clients. So I had a good mix of
Any
clients.
referrals?
Because you were with the prosecutor's office, that's what I said. You got plenty later, I noticed that when you got out.
Today's episode is entitled Personality in the Practice. Personality in the Practice, and both of you have very large personalities. And Val, I want to ask you a question about that. Although you've been practicing for many, many years on the Big Island, you described it initially, at least, as an American-Japanese community. How have you been able to maintain your Texas roots and your Texas personality and your Texas accent, for that matter?
Well, when I came to Hawaii, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go to Hawaii, but my mother's still living. As long as she's living, I'm going back at least twice a year. And I got into the practice, and I really did a lot of jury trials. And I would people would say, why do you go back to Texas every year? And I said, well, I go back there to recharge my accent, because the juries like it. Actually, I never tried to speak pidgin over here. I felt like you're talking down, and I figured they can understand me, and if they don't, then I'd ask them. Like I had a lot of Filipino clients, and they would always say, yes, attorney, yes, attorney. I'd say, wait, what did I just tell you? And I'd ask them to repeat it to make sure they understood it. But anyway, I never had trouble with, and I got to the point, you don't notice whether they're Japanese or Caucasian. They're just people.
Just people.
They're
People from
clients,
Hilo.
right, Stan? I mean, that's the way
That's it.
That's the way it works.
We have a photograph, photo 6, if we could go to photo 6 of you, Val, and it was taken fairly recently. If you could look at the screen. And you're in Western garb, and looks like you got some boots on. Is there any story associated with that?
Well, that particular one, I went back to Texas for a friend's 50th wedding anniversary. My wife and I, we met them when we got married. So they got married about a month before us. This was in Dallas. We lived there for a while. So he was in the barbecue business back there and very successful. So he and his wife had a 50th anniversary. And so my wife and I went back, and that was it. And I think I threw that in because I wanted people to see my boots. Because throughout my practice, I wore Western outfits when I was in trial.
Yes, you did, and I was in trial with you, and I remember you had a black pair of boots on during that trial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It depended on the suit. Yeah.
Okay. Stan, let me ask you about something that I'm not sure a lot of lawyers know about you, and that's that you're fluent in Hawaiian. And I want to ask you how that came about.
I ke kahi mau la, ua komo wā I ke kula nui ma Hilo I ka polokalama o lalo Hawaii. O ia ka mea mao no na loyo Hawaii I ke la wā. O wau ka mea e kokua mai I nā makaainana, ka apuni ke I honua nei me ka huhia, me nā plantation, me nā big business, a pelaku. Oia ke kumanoka o Lela, Hawaii.
Stan, thanks so much. Do you have any questions based on what he just said, Val?
I understood every word Stan said.
Good.
As
Good.
I always did when Stan was on the opposite side. I understood everything he said. Now, actually, I admire Stan for knowing Hawaiian like that. That takes a lot of effort. It's not an easy language to learn.
No, it's a tremendous feat, and we're real proud of that, Stan. Tell us what you said.
I said that there came a time when I went to University of Hawaii at Hilo's Hawaiian Language College. I actually attended for about 7 years, and my goal was to learn Hawaiian language well enough so that between myself and Andy Wilson, one of my law partners, we could understand the old letters, the old deeds, the old leases, the old probate files from the 1840s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, that to a great extent determined whether or not plantation employees and their families still had undivided interest in land left after the various plantations where they worked or where their relatives worked had lost their land to the plantation through an assortment of techniques that they employed. We don't need to go into that now, that's a thing of the past, but that was the reason. The only way we could fight up and up with the title insurance companies and the plantation management is we could read what these documents said in real time and explain it to our clients in our office so that when we went to trial, we had a chance of getting that property back. Chief Justice Richardson, who was appointed by Governor Burns, and they named the law school after the CJ, Governor Burns appointed him. He was the one who was the author of probably the most important case in that regard, and that was City and County versus Bennett. And that case simply said you can't take ownership by adverse possession in Hawaii without giving them actual notice, generally to their face. Otherwise, no such thing as posting signs anymore, which was the normal thing up to that time.
Oh.
So that was one of the passions that we had. And plantation era is come and gone except for Maui. But there was a 175-year period of time where what was happening was very controversial, to sum it up. And we felt that we were on the front lines of that battle, and the fact that we could speak the language helped us out immeasurably in the pretrial and during the depositions. We could talk in Hawaiian, opposing counsel wouldn't know what we were talking about, and we'd talk in front of the witness. So it was something very useful, and we enjoyed that.
Yeah, thanks, Stan. I think we all commend you for that.
Well,
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Val, I do have a question for you before we leave the Texas topic. It's just been burning at me. General Sheridan's famous quote, I'm sure you know it, Val. If I owned Texas and I owned hell, I'd rent out Texas and live in hell. How do you respond?
Well, I'm here, aren't I? But actually, Texas it depends on the part of Texas you're from, how bad it is. It's a big, huge state, and I think Sheridan must have been going through West Texas when he made those comments.
Okay.
But anyway, it's a real varied company.
Yeah,
and I still have some land back there. It's leased out, by the way.
Oh, you did lease it out.
Do you grow cotton?
The area I'm from, actually, it's my home property back there, and there's 40 acres,
Wow.
and a lot of trees on it, and
nice.
Deer. It's really a great place.
Oh,
I
nice.
go back and visit it now and then.
Thanks for sharing that, Val. Okay, I want to ask you both about the judges that you both, because you're both litigators, you're both in court a lot, and Stan, you still are. And I want to ask you about your early experiences with some of the judges on the Big Island. We could start with you, Stan. Who do you remember, and what do you remember about them?
they were all tough. Every one of them. They all had very strong personalities. At the time they sat, some of them, I was frightened of them. Some of them I didn't like them. Some of them I liked them immensely. But the thing they had in common is they were all tough. But generally speaking, with us lawyers, we were young guys. They were fair with us. In those days, in the 60s and the 70s, we didn't have mediation. We didn't have arbitration. If we had a dispute, we went to trial. And I always wanted to have a jury trial. I suppose Val would too if he was plaintiff's counsel in it. I wanted the jury to decide the fate of my client. Exactly. Because I didn't want to have the judiciary or the judge who may have a grudge on me that week or for whatever reason don't like my client or something. I put myself in the hands of the jury, and like Val has a Texas accent. I went to Manoa Elementary and Stevenson Intermediate, so when I went to Hilo, I could speak just as good Pidgin English as I could speak English, or maybe better. And so picking the jury in Hilo, everybody in the jury pool all speaks Pidgin English, and so you speak Pidgin English, they know immediately if you're from town. And that's how you get to the jury.
Thanks, Stan. We're gonna take a commercial break right now. Thank you.
Hi, aloha. My name is Chris Leatham, and I host a show called The Economy and You. The show plays every Wednesday at noon, and on my show, I bring on guests who are interested or working in the technology space. And so I'd like you to come and watch the show and learn with me about all the sort of exciting things that we're doing in Hawaii to build and grow our economy ecosystem. So I'd like to say aloha, and I look forward to seeing you on the show. Thank you.
This is Alice Lee Hagan, host of ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show here at ThinkTech Hawaii is every Thursday from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. I bring in interesting guests from Hawaii, the mainland, and hopefully international guests in the future. Do join us on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevelin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday.
And then our other daughter is a surfer.
We're back with our continued episode under the Living Legend Lawyers project of the HSBA. Our episode today is Personality and the Practice, and we have two great personalities from the Big Island with us today that we're very happy to have with us. And we were just talking about early experiences with Big Island judges. And Stan had told us about how stern they could be, how fair they could be, but he preferred a jury. He preferred a jury rather than a judge making deciding the fate of your client.
I did. I felt that I could relate with the jury. I was a local boy. They would listen to me because they knew that I was part of the community, and I don't want to talk politics, but they knew I was a Democrat and a Democrat legislator, and so they knew Hilo was a Democrat town. They knew that I was down there in Honolulu helping them out, and so they helped me out in the courtroom.
Okay, very good, okay. Just simple as that. Val, tell me about, and you can name names if you'd like, and tell me about any particular judge that you practiced in front of early on that impressed you, or vice versa, maybe didn't impress you.
Let me just comment on one of the things Stan said about, depending on the jury rather than the judge. I agree with that, because I remember one case I had, I felt the judge really was not, he didn't favor me in this case. So when I was selecting the jury, I asked each of the jurors, I said, you understand that in law, you are the sole judge of the facts, and the judge is the judge of the law. Now, he cannot tell you how to decide on the facts. So even if you think he's trying to tell you, he's really not, because he can't decide the facts, you can. But anyway, I agree with Stan. You know, I always depended more on the jury because I feel the jury, if you present the case properly to them, they'll make the right decision. I want to talk about a couple of the judges. I want to start off Sam King on here. I had a case before him.
Was this when he was on the federal bench?
The federal bench,
okay.
yeah. Had a case before him. It was a sexual harassment case, and my client was the defendant in the case, and he was a professor. And the plaintiff, this young girl, brought suit against him and the university. Well, to bring the university in, they had to show that my client did bad acts, and the university should have known about it. So when we got ready for trial, of course, I didn't want the bad acts that my clients brought out because that's not relevant to whether or not he did this particular act. So we were doing motions in limine before Judge King. So I was up there arguing, and one of my motions in limine was to keep out any facts about my client bad acts. So
Prior bad acts.
Yeah. So I was up there arguing with him, you know, and I was going eloquent, and he says, Mr. Cook, you should have brought an action for separate trials to bifurcate the case. And I said, ha, Judge, I did. And it was denied. And he said, well, Mr. Cook, it looks like you've got good grounds for appeal. Your motion is denied. Anyway, that was just like Judge King. And I like a judge like that has a sense of humor. In another case I had before him, I don't want to take a lot of time
No,
here.
please take all the time you like, Val.
That same case, and Judge King, you know, he was like 89 or something at the time. And I was cross-examining a witness. It was like 2 o'clock. He worked he quit at, I think, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'd been cross-examining this witness for a while. And finally I said, I was tired too, and I said, what day is it? Right in the middle of the cross-examination. Judge King looks up and says, well, Mr. Cook, we're in Paris, so it must be Tuesday. I thought, what is he talking about? So we go back at the break, and I had the Attorney General's office, had a couple of attorneys there, and I had my associate there, and my client was there, and we were trying to figure out, and we were all coming up with all kind of stuff, and my client just laughed. He knew all minutia. He says, didn't you ever see those on the road movies with Bob Hope and Hedy Lamarr and all those guys? He said, in one of those, you know, they were somewhere, and that question came up. So Judge King remembered that and brought it
That
up.
line from the movie. Wow, that's sharp.
On the Big Island, Judge Mondon was one of the first judges I ever went before, and he was really a gentleman. But he had Parkinson's late when I started for him. And then there was Judge Felix. My first case was before Judge Felix, and I thought I did really a great job, you know. And it was a divorce case, and I won the case. And I got back to the office, and I was, you know, that was the first case I passed the bar the weekend before, and or the day before.
Wow.
I've been sworn in, actually. And I came back, and I was telling Cyril Connie, he said, oh, you know, I did this, and Cyril. He says, Judge Felix didn't like Dwayne. That was the other attorney. So he, you know, but Felix was really Stan probably practiced for him more than I did because he got off the bench shortly after that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Then we had Judge Minor, Ben Minor. He was a great guy. And he liked to drink coffee and smoke. We'd have a break, and we'd go late into the night in those days, you know, because there's only 2 judges there. We'd go in there, and Judge Minor always had a cup of coffee in his hand. Remember that?
Yeah.
And smoking. You know, we'd try to tell him, you know. And of course, he went on to the Supreme Court. But he was a great guy. And then there was Judge Kimura, and he was a great judge too. But Judge Kimura, everybody liked Judge Kimura. But Judge Kimura, sometimes he didn't want to make a decision. I had one case where it was like 2 years before he finally. Steve Christensen was on the other side. We keep going in. I had a motion to dismiss, you know, because Steve's client was clearly wrong, and Steve knew it. And the judge said, "Well, can't you guys go out and work it out?" And finally, I said, "Judge," I said, "we can't work it out. Could you just decide?" And Steve Christensen said, "Yeah, Judge, would you decide?" But he was just such a nice guy. But he was a good judge.
Let me,
Thanks,
let
Dan.
me,
Yeah.
Sin,
let
not
me,
sin.
let me comment
Please.
about Judge Menor
Yeah,
and Judge Doy.
yeah.
Val and I are tied together by circumstances of history. Our paths are intertwined by what happened. Shortly after he came to Hilo, he went to work for Nelson Doy. There was a musical chairs in politics.
Yeah.
And the musical chairs occurred. It started heating up in late 68, and it came to a head on January 15th, 1969. And this is what happened. Nelson Doy was a senator, Democrat senator, and he was a Tom Gill backer, and Tom Gill was going to run against Governor Burns in 1970, and that was heating up at the time. So, as luck would have it, Governor Burns decided to nominate Nelson Doy. We didn't have Judicial Selection Commission those days. He decided to nominate Nelson Doy because he's such a fiery trial lawyer, nominate him to the Circuit Court bench in Hilo. So that opened a slot in the state Senate, and that meant that the two likely prospects for that Senate slot were the two House members from Hilo. One was Glenn Hara's dad, Stanley Roehrig, and the other was Toshi Sarazawa.
I remember that.
And so if one of them went up to the Senate, that opened a slot in the House. So Stanley Roehrig went to the Senate, and Stanley Roehrig went to the House.
Okay.
And that's how I got started
you were
in politics. I was appointed
By
Governor
Governor
Burns.
Burns.
And the person who did all of the negotiating was my former boss, Bert Kobayashi Sr., and as I heard later from Scrub Tanaka, who was our faction head in Democrat politics in Hilo, he said that the boss, that's what we call Bert Sr., the boss, had shuttled back and forth to Hilo, back to Honolulu, talked to the governor, back to Hilo. The ILWU wanted Shigi Nakatani to be the House member. Shigi Nakatani is the father of Gail Nakatani, who sat circuit court judge, another fine Wahine judge. And I think Scrub told the boss to tell the gov, if my man Roehrig isn't in, I'm out. Or words to that effect, some
Right.
kind of, sudden death strategy. And so I went down to Honolulu the night before, the 15th of January, 1969. I went to my parents' house up in Manoa. My dad was a very strong Republican. Went to the Pacific Club every day to play cribbage and smoke cigars. And so my dad said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm going to get appointed to the legislature tomorrow morning if you want to come watch. And he said, yeah, right. And so I said, I told him, you know everything, you know everything. You want to find out what really happens, you come. Otherwise, you'll find out in the newspaper. So my dad died the same year. And 15 years later, I was told by one of our investigators, I was having lunch with him, he said, did I ever tell you how I met your dad? And I said, no, you didn't. He said, I was at the legislature when you were getting sworn in by Speaker Tadao Beppu, and there's this distinguished gentleman with a suit and a handkerchief in his pocket standing next to me, and he came up to me and he said, that's my son.
That's great.
And I never knew, and my dad was so hard case from the 30s. He never told me a word, and my mom never told me, but there it is.
Thanks, Stan. That's a great story. I really
So,
appreciate
let
that.
me just
Thank
add
you.
one thing on
Can we
that
just,
from
Val, one sec. We're going to take a break, and then I want to hear that.
Oh, okay.
I want to hear your comments. Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Paul Jackson, better known as PJ, and my local interest is in sports. I have my own sports radio show at KWAI AM 1080 that you can stream live. I also have my own website, pjsportsradio.com. We have live guests in studio, and we talk about discussions and topics that everyone wants to know locally here on the islands. We cover everything from surfing to basketball to whatever's going on locally, sports-wise. We try to do our best and cover the topics in depth as much as we can. Once again, thank you for joining PJ here on Hawaii Sports Update. Mahalo.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island in the ER position. Every other Tuesday, I get to host a show here on the ThinkTech program about healthcare. We call it Healthcare in Hawaii. It's really enjoyable for me to bring other healthcare leaders from around the state to talk about our pressing issues. Hawaii has long been the health state, but we need to keep up the momentum, the inertia.
Hi, I'm your host on ThinkTech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, ThinkTech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia, and by Asia we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Thank you, and welcome back to another episode, a fun episode today of Living Legend Lawyers, Personality and the Practice, two long-standing distinguished attorneys from the Big Island, Hilo Val Cook and Stan Roehrig, Stan having bar number 664 and Val having bar number 718, our three-digit lawyers. Val, you were about ready to comment on Stan's comment regarding the musical chairs in the legislature back in 69 and 70 in Hilo.
Yeah, while I wasn't actively involved in the Democratic Party, I was more Republican at the time. I remember specifically when Judge Burns asked Nelson Dora to take that position. Nelson Dora, there was a lot of soul searching. He wasn't that, because he knew exactly what was going on. He and I guess Tom Gill. I didn't know Tom Gill at the time, but it wasn't a slam dunk. He almost did not take it, I think.
Did he talk to you about it? Did he kind of run the pros and cons by you, Val?
He didn't come ask Val Cook, what do you think? No, but I knew what was going on, and there were a lot of people coming in and out of the office, so we knew what was going on.
You knew, because it was your office.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it was, okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you. Stan, you brought another picture. I want you to hold it up. I want you to hold it up for a little while so that all of our viewers can see that.
It's a little bit soiled.
That's okay. And I must, okay.
Oh, that's a different one.
Let's go with the surfer
So that
shot.
one, it's turned sideways.
Turn sideways. Have him hold it up against
I'll
you.
just hold this up. Can you see that?
Okay.
Can the camera see this?
Okay,
Oh, here
yes,
we go.
thanks. Thank you, Stan. Thanks a lot. Now, who, I mean, I'm assuming that's Sean Thompson or Christian Slater or somebody, but who is it, Stan?
Well, that's me. About on my 60th birthday, everybody in Hilo surfed at Honolii. Honolii. Honolii means small stream.
Okay.
That's what it means. So around my 60th birthday, our surfer daughter, our number 2 daughter, is a surfer. She took this picture of me at Honolii. I didn't know she had taken it, but
Wow.
This is a 6 to 8 foot wave.
Yeah, it is.
And
All of that.
I spent many years abusing my body surfing in Honolii. I remember going to trial one time where I had stitches right under my eye. You can see I still have a dent there. Surfboard knocked me out. It hit me right here and right below the eye, and I blacked out underwater. And when I came up, I was a mess. So I went to the emergency room and they stitched me up, but I was in trial then. So I guess I looked kind of rakish, I guess is the right word, when I was in front of the jury, and I was sort of wiping myself once in a while. Sort of a mess, but I enjoyed my career in the ocean for many, many, many years until there came a day I just couldn't go surfing anymore because I I had all kind of back issues, but.
But it looks like you continue to paddle. If we could get that paddling shot up, if you could hold
Okay,
that up.
all right.
Let's get that one up.
So-
That's important.
I'm the steersman in this shot.
Okay, now we're in the canoe.
We're in the canoe. Whoop.
Oh, okay.
There we
There's
go.
the canoe.
Now, believe it or not, the stroker is Judge Vandekar. Lloyd Vandekar sits on the family court in Hilo, and I'm the steersman, and this is a 15-mile race down at Anaiho'omalu in West Hawaii. In the morning, you go to the right, the race starts about 11, then you turn and you go uphill, and by about 11 o'clock, the wind is coming onshore at an angle coming over the ama from behind you, and so you're riding downwind, and this photo is taken just as we start into Anaiho'omalu Bay on the home stretch, and I enjoyed my paddling career with a lot of lawyers. We had a lot of lawyers in our club. There's some of us still paddling, but
You're also paddling, aren't you?
I'm POW
You're POW.
paddling. When I got to 74, I was a steersman. My left leg started getting numb, and so I went to the neurosurgeon who had already operated on me a couple times, and he told me that you have two choices: you can walk, or you can paddle, but not both. And so, oh, that's quite a choice. Thank you for that. So I had to give it up, but I'm still on the board of directors for our club, and my wife paddled for many years with me, and it was a wonderful thing for our family.
Yeah, that's
So,
terrific.
Local boy, that's it.
Speaking of family, if we could pull up Val's photo number 3, I'd like to ask. You know, Val, it's my understanding that there's your wife and there's a couple of boys in that picture. At least one of them's a lawyer, isn't he?
Both of them are lawyers. So
Thank you.
The older one is Albert. He's, I don't know how old he was in that picture, but.
Is he in the green shirt or the red?
I can't even see the pictures.
Okay, well, one of the young.
He'd be the taller of the two,
Okay,
anyway.
yeah, we can see who that is.
So he's in the Attorney General's office. He's a Deputy Attorney General. He's sort of an expert in this internet predator crime. He's been on TV a lot with, he tried a lot of those cases.
Wow, and we're talking about the federal government.
I'm talking about the state, the Attorney General's office.
Here, oh, in Hawaii.
In Hawaii.
Okay, thank you.
So he practices here. He graduated from, he went to Baylor for a year and a half, and then he ended up at John A. Burns School. He's a graduate here.
Okay.
And then my younger son, Vaughn, is an attorney in Hilo with the Torkelson Katz firm.
Is that the guy out there, Val?
That's the guy out there.
Yeah, and Vaughn brought you here today from Hilo.
He
I
did.
really appreciate
because my eyes have gotten really bad. That's why I'm not practicing anymore.
Okay.
But I can still do things like, I jog a lot, like Stan did. I relieve my tension by jogging and skiing, and I'm still able to do both. I'm 81, but I'm still going down the hills, not as steep as I used to.
I'm going downhill too.
Anyway.
Thanks, Val. And Stan, I happen to know that right now you're Jim Bickerton's associate, but I understand there's also somebody that you practice with that you're related to.
Our son is in the same law firm, and our son is the associate. I'm of counsel.
Okay, I was just kidding.
And of counsel means that you sharpen the pencils, make sure that the windows are open in the morning so the breeze comes in, and you get to carry the books to the courtroom. That's what I get to do, and I find that very invigorating, and especially practicing with your kid is a very special relationship, and I'm very pleased with that, and I really enjoy our Honolulu law firm, and Jim Bickerton's a very good mentor, and he's a very good trial lawyer, so
Yes.
we get along fine.
That's great. I know both of you are very proud of your children. You also have a daughter as well.
We got 2 daughters.
2 daughters.
One of them is an esthetician, but she's more a surfer than an esthetician, and she's also a massage therapist. And then our second daughter is went to Stanford Medical School, and she's a specialist in internal medicine and primary care. And her husband, our son-in-law, emergency room physician, and they're in Burlingame. I couldn't
Bay
convince them
Area.
to come, Bay Area, I couldn't convince them to come to Hilo, but my wife goes to see our grandkids and our son-in-law and our daughter about 3 times a year, and I see them at Christmas, they come to Hilo, but mainland's too cold for me.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for sharing about your family. Appreciate that as well. I want to ask you a question about, well, there's 2 things really on the minds of people that listen and the young lawyers. And one is, do you have any advice, or can you tell our young practitioners what it was like in the 60s and what it's like today and the changes that have occurred? So kind of a 2-part question, advice and change.
It's really changed. When we started practice, it was a very small bar, and you knew everybody, and there was a trust. If somebody filed a lawsuit and you had 20 days to answer, you called the guy up, like Ben Minor or Masanori Kushi or one of those, Roy Nakamoto, one of those guys, and you say, hey, Roy, I need a few more days to answer this complaint. Oh yeah, Val, take whatever you need, let me know. And you didn't have to write a letter saying, you've given me an extra 10 days. There was a real trust. And it was, practicing in a small town was fantastic because you had so many different kind of cases that come before you. Where if you're in a big firm, you sort of get off in a corner and do things. But I had, in the first 10 years of my practice, I had an abortion case. it was right after the Roe v. Wade came up. I had a client, a man, call me. He says, my wife is down at the women's center, and she's pregnant. She wants to get an abortion, and I don't want it. And I said, so I went in and I filed a motion for a temporary restraining order. And I went in because I thought, well, it's as much his as it is hers. Well, it wasn't. But anyway, I lost the case, but that was the kind of case. And I had a death case. When does a person die? When are they dead? This was right after that Quinlan case, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And I had this woman came into Hilo, young girl, pretty girl, and she had brought in some cocaine in a prophylactic, and swallowed it, and it exploded, and it was such an assault on her body that, it just destroyed her brain. Mm-hmm. Well, I had a local doctor there, we called him the hippie doctor, and he was going to take her organs because they couldn't find family or anything. And the prosecutor said, if you do that, we're going to charge you with murder. So I went in, he came to me, and I went into court, and I said, Judge, I want you to determine that this person is dead. Well, she was on a ventilator,
life support,
and still breathing. So we tried that. When is a person dead? And they had the Harvard criterion. I won that case, by the way, and I made the front page of the New York Times. Hugh Clark wrote an article. He was telling me about it. I didn't even know this. Hugh died a few days ago, by the way. He was a Honolulu Advertiser reporter at the time. So he wrote the case, and it was picked up by AP. But anyway, that was really interesting. We had a lot of different kind of cases that come before you. And I just thoroughly enjoyed all my years of practice. It was fantastic. And I wouldn't practice anywhere else than in a small town like that.
Val, thanks. Stan, thanks. We're out of time. We could go for another 2 hours. I wish we could. Thank you so much for this interview and for talking to us. It means a lot to the Hawaii State Bar Association and to our members.
We enjoyed it and enjoyed talking to Stan.
I think the Bar Association's to be congratulated, and you and your staff for doing this. My wife always comments that when makulis like us go into the store, we're invisible. And so we're not invisible to the Bar Association. And for those young lawyers out there who are watching, it doesn't get any easier as you get older in law practice, but you have great memories. So leave it at that.
Thanks, Stan. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.